Hey guys, it's Billy from DCC, and I just wanted to share a quick follow-up, a little extra nugget based on yesterday's message. We began kind of walking through the Old Testament as the Bible that Jesus read. When they referred to the scriptures in the New Testament, it was almost exclusively referring to that Old Testament scripture. And we talked a little bit about how, when we begin to follow Christ and we see his example and what he's done in the New Testament, that's like the top layer of soil. But if you dig down, you can see how we've built up to that moment throughout all the scriptures to that point. One of the really cool moments in Jesus' life is when he comes to his disciples walking on water in the middle of a storm. And we can find that in a couple of different places in the New Testament, but specifically, if you want to go check out Matthew chapter 14. And we might just be tempted to see that moment as it's usually talked about, Jesus showing his great power over the elements, and he was, for sure. Like when we recognize Jesus as the King of everything, when we recognize Jesus as the embodiment of Yahweh, we recognize that he has power over all of creation. But there's a little bit more there to see. If you're familiar with your Old Testament, there's going to be some images that come to mind when you begin to see Jesus walking on the water, and surely his disciples would have thought about some of these things. For example, if you go back in history, and we're going to move backwards to the beginning, you would think about the people of Israel being brought into the promised land. Where? Through the water. They came across the Jordan on dry ground. And 40 years before that, we see the people of Israel being rescued out of Egypt by Yahweh, leading them through the Red Sea on dry ground. And if you go all the way back to the very beginning, Genesis 1-2, we see that the Spirit of God was there hovering over the face of the waters. What Jesus is perhaps communicating to us by the very act of walking on water is that everything that the Old Testament had been building to, everything that the Tanakh had been pointing to, was being fulfilled in his life and his ministry and in his kingdom that he was accomplishing. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful, beautiful thing that is. So I just remind you, when we look at the Old Testament, it's all about Jesus. God bless.